Hi everyone. Welcome to the Book of Boba Fett show for HCA Hollywood Critics Association. I am so excited to talk about Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm. It's directed by Kevin Tenchuan and written by Jon Favreau, of course. But I'm here. I'm here with my crew. I'm gonna have everyone introduce themselves quickly, and before we begin, because we have a lot to talk about. It's a lot this episode. I have a lot of notes for you guys. I want to know your thoughts and everything. So I'm gonna have everyone introduce themselves. Okay, John, go first, and then we'll just do.
Hey everyone, I'm John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host on my own Outlaw, The Outlaw Nation. You can follow me at The Rocha Says. And this is a lot of fun. I'm excited to talk about this one because there was so much in here. And ladies and gentlemen, the cyberpunkization of Star Wars is here. It's official. There's no going back.
Yes.
I'm Maggie.
Hey, I'm.
Sorry. Dan. Oh, that's you. No, Dan.
Yeah, I'm Dan Murrell at Murrell Dan on Twitter and Dan Murrell Movies on YouTube. And yeah, we were just talking about it. It's. I think we're split like 50-50 between the people that stay up late and the people that get up early. But either way, we had a fun episode to talk about. So it all washes out in the end.
Yeah.
And hello, I'm Maggie Lovitt. You can find me over on Twitter at Maggie of the Town. I am the managing editor of entertainment over at Your Money Geek, and I'm a weekend news editor over at Collider, where I do reviews every week on the Book of Boba Fett.
Well, welcome, guys. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm gonna give an overview of the episode, but first, I want to know your initial thoughts when you guys, after you finish watching the entire episode. What were your initial thoughts of how you felt and just overall? John, go first.
Sure. I like the episode. This was a better episode for me than the last episode, and I don't want to start tongues wagging again. But for me, this felt more like what I've enjoyed about the Book of Boba Fett from the beginning. It had more of that kind of just vibe and style and feel to it that I really enjoyed. Yeah, we had that cyberpunk scene, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But it was nice to see finally Fennec Shand take a little bit of the center stage. Not as much as I was hoping, but certainly enough to finally make something focused on her, have her input in all of this. And we'll discuss it, obviously, as we go along. But I liked it a lot, really enjoyed it. And it had nice shades of the original trilogy, along with a little more of the badassery. And I think people need to start understanding that this is the approach. You can complain and be upset about the fact that you don't have a darker, grittier Sin City Star Wars, but that's not what's happening here. That's not the Robert Rodriguez you're getting here. This has got to be more playful at times. This has got to be more of the levity mixed in with a little bit more of the harder edge to it. And I think, if I'm not wrong, we've officially changed the ship's name to Fire. So that's a fascinating change as well.
Yes. I agree with you. I think this episode is so much better than last week. And I was on the fence about last week. I liked it, but there's parts I didn't like. Yeah. But this one very much had the same hype as episode 2 for me. I was so excited. Very excited to have more Fennec backstory. Also love the confirmation of time has passed.
Yes.
That made me happy. And, I think last week I was saying that I had issues with Boba not having a clear motivation. So it was nice that we see that he has been burnt by bad employers and he's annoyed with the state of things, and he's wanting to take the bull by the horns and try his own hand at leading fairly without people getting hurt, which I thought was a nice deviation from what I think people thought of Boba Fett being. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I think, because I was kind of helping to run things last week, so I didn't put as much of my personal opinion into the show, but I kind of feel I'm a little bit opposite of you guys, just a bit. I didn't dislike last week or this week, but I felt like I was a little higher on last week's show, and this week I thought had some really cool moments and some really cool elements, but for me it was just sort of kind of going back and closing circles that we already knew were closed. And I think because the bulk of the episode was this sort of flashback stuff, I liked a lot of the stuff in the flashback, but at the same time, I'm far more interested in the story going forward. So because this episode had a little bit less of that for me, I kind of have preferred the more forward-looking episodes, apart from the Tusken episode, which I thought was really strong. But then it we'll see what they do, but it doesn't seem like they did a whole lot with that other than kind of adding to a cool backstory. But yeah, no, it's it's not that I disliked it necessarily. It's just this one was the one for me where I was kind of like, yeah, we know this. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it. The Sarlacc pit was the coolest part for me as far as the flashback stuff. And then I'm much more invested in where we go forward from here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this might be the end that we see of like a flashback because this is what we've been waiting for. You know, we want to see Fennec Shand and how they interacted and how she became so loyal to him. You know, so it starts off, like, of course he's riding on his banta, right, the banta, and he tries to get his ship, the fire spray, but then he notices there's too many guards, so he just goes on his journey. We'll come back and deal with it. But then as he's chilling by the fire with his banta, he sees the lights that we see from chapter 5 of The Mandalorian, the Gunslinger. And that's where he finds Fennec Shand in Shand and takes her to a cyberpunk doctor, in the outskirts of Mos Eisley. And she's saved and now has modifications in her body. I want to know your thoughts on the scene and the addition of more cyberpunk tech to it. Because I know your thoughts, John, and I know everyone else's little thoughts on the cyberpunk. They added a lot more cyberpunk to this episode to kind of let you know that, hey, this has been around for a while. So can I get your thoughts? I'll have Daniel first.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think it's kind of like what John said. This is, even though Robert Rodriguez didn't direct this episode, he's been very heavily involved and influential in the making of it. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of a Planet Terror-esque type thing of, I'm going to remake you and kind of go with this. It reminded me a little bit of Alita, which again makes sense with the Robert Rodriguez angle. I think it just kind of goes to show you how each filmmaker now is putting their own personal stamp on their corner of the Star Wars universe. And I think as long as it's not, I think as long as they don't all contradict themselves, which without getting into a quagmire has kind of happened in the past a few times. I think that as long as you are using it to explore these different universes, these different pockets of the universe, I don't have really that much of a problem with it. I know that there was, we do our show pretty early, so I hadn't seen much reaction to last week's show, but I know there's been a whole discussion about last week's show. I think that we are very much in the mode here where and I like this, they're giving the reins to different filmmakers, and they're kind of saying like, listen, it's a cohesive universe, and yet we're giving you the freedom to kind of put your own stamp on things. So I didn't mind it. It actually kind of makes sense to me. I like the idea, and it makes sense that you would have these underground places that are sort of scavenging droid parts and using them to modify and enhance. And, it's a sort of this, the equivalent of an action movie now when they take John Wick to the vet, to get patched up. This is the kind of place that these people run. So I don't mind it. I really don't. I think it's a something fresh, something new. And I don't think it really stands to contradict much that we know from the Star Wars universe as it is. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm going to go next before John's like, no, I hate it. After the episode finished, I was thinking about how interesting it is that this is post-imperial occupation and the Empire and all of this. And I kind of love the idea of the youths being like, everything has been terrible. Our entire childhood, our entire early adolescence has been marred by war and horrible rulers. So why not embrace the weird and embrace the punk and modify our bodies and just devil may care. And I kind of love this idea. I love when Star Wars branches out and broadens the cultural aspects and the human aspects of the stories, because I feel like we often forget that Tatooine is not just Mos Eisley. It's a whole planet. Coruscant, there's so much more. In Naboo, there's so much more. And there's different little groupings of people that are being influenced by different planets and what they're watching on holovids and all of the much more larger global aspect of Star Wars. And so I feel like the cyberpunk vibe really fits into this world in flux and trying to reclaim your personhood by having control over your body. So a lot of kind of playing with that autonomy. And I feel like maybe as a millennial, I get that, having, grown up in a very strange world and having that kind of desire to have control and change up things. So I love it. I think it's a really cool angle. And I would love to see a comic book run of the Mod Squad and that whole very gritty. I love it.
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I don't. And first of all, let me clarify, Maggie. Every generation has grown up with the crazy world.
I know.
Let me tell you about nuclear war. No, I'm just joking. Listen, the whole thing with the cyber stuff. For me, this time around, I didn't mind it. And I'll tell you, and I want to clarify what I said last week. And doing the review with my fellow geek buddies we did with Laura Kelly on my channel, I realized it was not that it was in here. It was the execution of how it was done last week. I think that's where I got hung up on. And so for me as a reviewer, sometimes you've got to learn to clarify. You got to think your thoughts out through a little bit more sometimes. And what you say initially may not be fully what you're trying to say. So I want to clarify that in connection to what we're talking about here. I liked it here. I enjoy, and Maggie makes a lot of sense. There are these outposts that logically there'll be these places. They're doing different things. Luke had a bionic hand or whatever, a cybernetic hand in Empire Strikes Back. So it's like this has been in Star Wars for quite some time. It's about how you do it. Now here again, I thought him arriving, him showing up, him doing all this kind of stuff, it leads to a more philosophical discussion, which is Fennec had no say in what happened to her body. And I think that's an interesting, for me, I approach Star Wars more from a philosophical point of view than naming the ships or naming the characters of the species. It's more about the philosophy, the concepts that they're pitching. And for me, there was an opportunity missed to have a discussion about why did you do this? Yes, to save my life, but I had no agency in your decision. And she seems to be okay with it, as we see later on. But like something about that, I think, was lost that we could have had a conversation. The doctor really kind of bored me. There was no real charm to him or interesting thing to him. And at times it felt like that Steve Buscemi moment where he walks in with the skateboard and grown-ups. He's like, hey, what's up, guys? It feels like they're a little out of step. Like it's older people doing this EDM / house music scene. Yeah. And that throws me off a little bit. I was in the EDM scene for about 5 years. I loved it. But like, I also knew like my place in it. This is a young person's thing. I'm just here to enjoy because I love the music and occasionally lose my mind doing other things. But like this thing, I felt if you're going to go here, let's go here. Let's do it authentically and not have it feel like adults version of EDM. So I don't know Kevin's age, the director's age, and I wonder how much input he might have had. But look, you don't bring Robert Rodriguez into this project, as Dan was mentioning earlier, without having his signature on it. And everybody in Star Wars knew, had conversations with Robert, and Robert's like, I want to do this. So this is all being done with the approval of everybody at Star Wars. So this is not some kind of thing where he's going off on his own. So I think people need to kind of adjust their thinking when they approach that here in Star Wars, in Book of Boba Fett, at least.
I agree about the mod pod parlor guy.
The
coolest thing about him is his real life name. He goes by Thundercat. His name is Steven Bruner, I believe. He is a musician in Los Angeles. As soon as I saw that his name was Thundercat, I'm like, that has to be his canon name too. Like, we have to, whatever they're going to name him, he is Thundercat now.
Doc Thundercat.
Yeah, it's also great. I actually was happy when I saw him because he is a local musician in LA. He's pretty well known, and I love seeing Black people in space. So because we don't get enough of that, so that was great to see him. But I agree with you on the age thing. A lot of them were older, getting it. Maybe they were trying to relive their youth, or like going there, like doing that. But it felt a little Spy Kids to me, but it also didn't bother me because with the glasses. If you guys saw, there's like little glasses of zooming in, and so I felt like that was, I was okay with it, but it did feel like when you said that with Steve Buscemi, I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it.
Oh yeah.
But then of course, he did modify her, and she did wake up and ask him like, what did you do to me? And she's a survivor, so she's like, okay, fine, I'm alive now, I owe you. And he tells her he wants his ship back, the fire spray, and he recruits her to recover it. And they go back. She goes back to being the badass assassin she is, and helps him recover it. But that's still run by Bib Fortuna at the time. They destroyed some droids, destroyed some droids, including the cute rat catcher that he turns himself off. So that was cute.
That was great.
What a mood. I am removing myself.
No, from the narrative. And he kills off some of the men to get the ship. Fennec saves the day a few times again, and he tells her your debt has been paid, and she can be dropped off anywhere. But she decides to stay with him. And they kill off the Niku sand riders and with the fire sprays. That was a cool scene. Then we get to see him try to find his armor in the Sarlacc pit. And then I know this is Dan's favorite part, where she saves him again when they try to go in. And they have a cute moment where they're in the fire and they talk about, he wants to become a daimyo, and he offers her to join him by offering his loyalty, and he will share in the success for the wealth. I was wondering what you thought about these scenes. Like, you could pick and choose, because it's a lot for this episode of like Fennec Shand doing this and this. So I want to know what your thoughts on the scene and how Fennec decides to join Boba Fett, ultimately decide to join him. We'll go with we'll do opposite. John.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, once again, there's a lot of philosophical stuff here. There's a lot about conversations about, hey, this is almost the Norma Ray Boba Fett. Like, he's like, we got to unionize. I want to, I'm tired of us working for these corporate overlords who are going to tell us what to do. Like, they're dumb. They use us, and whenever they feel like it, and we take it because this is the life we've chosen. And so I want to do something else, right? I mean, this is Neo disconnecting from the Matrix. This is that kind of thing where you're breaking a pattern. You're breaking the wheel, to use a Game of Thrones reference. And so I like that they finally, as Maggie pointed out earlier, they finally give you why Boba wants to do what he's doing, what his intentions are, what his drive is. I would have liked to have seen more conflict here between him and Fennec, more of the discussion, more of the argument, more of the counterpoint, because she is a good counterpoint to Boba all the time. She's a very powerful energy, Ming-Na Wen, especially in this character. And so I would have liked to have seen a little more challenging of his points of view, challenging of his intentions, a little more of that. I think could have been some more interesting conversations going on. I enjoyed the droid stuff, the stuff in the Bib Fortuna, all of that. I mean, we're in a high technological area. How are there not cameras all over the place in this high, whatever, it is what it is. Guards are there, and Fennec does what she needs to do. It was great to see the fire spray. God damn it, I love that ship. And so seeing all of it kind of play out its way, but I'm not going to take any thunder away from Dan. I love the Sarlacc pit as well, but for me, the cinematography in this whole section was gorgeous. The shot of them sitting there as she wakes up with the fire, and then the shot of the sky, all of it, it was framed so beautifully. You could have actually took a picture of that and put it on the wall. So sometimes we forget when we're arguing storylines, there's also an incredible amount of cinematography and direction here that's going into. It's just kind of you're playing underneath, and you've got to take a moment to highlight it because it's really well shot, this show. And so I enjoyed that overall. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree. I also felt like there wasn't enough of that pushback and enough like give and take between them. And I think a lot of that comes down to, like, Jon Favreau is a man of few words. Like, his scripts do not have a lot of dialogue, which sometimes is a hindrance. And I feel like it pushes a lot of that really important character development onto unspoken performances and directorial choices, which is like the one thing that I think my biggest critique so far of the Book of Boba Fett has been that I haven't gotten those really solid character moments that actually have dialogue to go with them. But I am really happy that we got Fennec confirming 3 times that she wants to be there. Yeah. That is her choice, because I know after the tragedy, there was a lot of people that were a little worried about what the power dynamic might have been with her being in his debt. Maybe, like, we didn't really know where things were. So I was really happy for that. And going back to I think, John, you brought it up, the agency issue. I talked about that in my review this morning. Like, I wish there could have been more, but I was glad that she kind of was like, okay, well, you saved me. I guess this is my new life. I have a cybernetics tummy. But there is a lot of that kind of little things that they seem to be doing. But, like, I wish there was just a little bit more of that conversation, that communication. We see their partnership, and I think a lot of that is credited to the director's choices, the little moments, the little looks, the tiny little, eye rolls, like, oh my gosh, here he is doing this stupid thing, getting us almost killed by the Sarlacc pit. But I think it works. It's close enough to what I was envisioning for this episode, and I think it lays some really interesting groundwork for what the next 3 episodes will be. I still don't know if, like, their loyalty is going to be tested, because this whole theme of this episode was about loyalty. So I'm curious to see if there's any follow through with that. But I'm for the most part, I'm pretty satisfied. There's fanfic if I'm not.
Can I add just one more thing with their before Dan goes with their interactions? I mean, we see why Boba wants to leave this life. We don't know why Fennec agrees so quickly to leave this life. I would have liked to have seen, yes, her getting shot by the Lesser Cannibali. I understand that, but like, what's her journey? Like, I'm talking about the actor.
I would have
What's
loved
her
that.
journey?
No, I
Yeah,
love it. I love that name. I love that name.
I would have loved if she was like, yeah, I got shot down by like a terrible bounty hunter. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'm a little ashamed now. So I'm
Right,
just going to
maybe
retire.
it's time to, maybe it's time to retire. Trust me, I know about when it's time to retire. Trust me.
And I wondered if they were trying to convey that the moment when Boba says, like, there's a lot of merit to being believed to be dead.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that maybe is why she's
Good
like,
point.
maybe you're right. Maybe I don't need to go back to that. I can just play it my own game. She has a bounty on her head, clearly, still.
Yeah.
So maybe she's just like, I'll just stick around here, ride it out, see where this goes.
Yeah. So the Sarlacc pit, first of all, it even though it featured one of my returns of my least favorite additions to Star Wars, which is when George Lucas added cartoons to it in the special edition. I think they figured out how to use it and make it consistent here. And also, again, we talk about the opportunity for this show to sort of bond all of these very disparate things together into one. I love the return of the sonic mines that we saw Jango use in the prequels, and the fact that Boba's got him on his ship, and just the idea. I don't know if the Sarlacc pit is dead. I think it'd certainly be hard to, or the Sarlacc, I should say, it certainly would be hard to survive that kind of thing. But I thought that was a really fun. The whole time they were doing it, I was like, "Oh, please, like just drop a sonic mine down into that thing." And I just love the suspense of it. You know, listen, I guess the fire spray now. It's a very it's a terrible design. It's a cool looking ship. It's a terrible design, but they just very impractical. But they used it so well in this, and to build such suspense, the fact that you have to bring it looking straight down, and the big bubbles right in front of you, and I just thought that was a very suspenseful scene where you're shining the light down into it, and then it comes up and it grabs you, and it's, I mean, listen, that thing is strong. It was about to pull the whole ship down into it. I just really, really liked that scene. I thought it was a well executed scene, well shot. Well conceived, and again, just kind of showing us more of this thing that we have that is a big part of Star Wars lore that we've only seen on screen for a couple minutes total. When you talk about Jedi, and then again at the beginning of this. The other thing is, John mentioned the cinematography, and I think one thing that people don't give, or that people maybe don't think about, is the fact that I think one of the reasons these shows look so great is because it's done with that virtual set technology, where it's not all green screen. Because I can usually pick that out pretty easily, and it looks very. I call it prequely, and it's not necessarily George Lucas's fault. I mean, he did choose to shoot it that way, but so much of the prequels is shot on a green screen, and you can just tell, and you can even tell in a lot of other movies that are made now that are shot on green screen. Yeah. And Favreau, again, like, we give him credit for his writing, but that was also technology that he largely helped bring into the mainstream with Jungle Book, starting a Jungle Book back in 2016, and he did it with Lion King to a certain extent, but there was more animation there. But the fact that they're bringing that now to the movies and the shows, we did a breakdown with the visual effects supervisor of Solo back in my Screen Junkies fandom days, and he was saying that, like, the Millennium Falcon and Solo largely had practical video outside of the windows. Wow. And so that it was all shot, it was captured in camera, and you get so much of that in this show as well. And I think it adds so much of a realistic feel to the show, in that you can just, there's a difference between somebody standing in front of something, even if it's a big video projection, and doing a green screen composite. And so I think that that's added so much dimension to these shows, and helped to make them feel much more tactile and real. And that's another thing that I think that Jon Favreau kind of brings to Disney and Marvel, and the whole corporate umbrella is I think that technology is being employed really well on these shows.
No, what I can't wait for? When I was watching that scene, I was like, this is totally going to be a Disney World ride someday. Picture how cool it would be to be like, tilt it forward and then have something shaking, and like some sort of, like, you have to fire to get out of it. Like the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, but with some Star Tours thrown in.
Just add it to Star Tours. It's just a video.
Exactly.
Program it. Get to come program it. I would wait in line 5 times for Star Tours if I could, get a shot at getting the Sarlacc ride.
Oh, I love it.
I also think it would be cool if they had a fire spray, like you trying to drive the fire spray, because that was really difficult. I was
trying to reach the button.
Like I just can't believe it still works after all those years. No, not that long, but it's still like because usually you have to restart your car every few times. It's like I was like, oh, he goes, oh, it still works. I'm like, oh, it looks so clunky.
And it's been what, 5 years?
Yeah, it's been 5 years. I was like, I don't know, you need to restart that thing every like once a year at least. But yeah, I was just like, okay, it looks clunkier and than before, but no, definitely. But I'm still kind of, even though he talked about loyalty throughout this episode. Last episode, we were all kind of like, where was she when Krasatan attacked them, and so we all were kind of curious about that, and something seems fishy that she would just join him, without her opinion, like John said, like her opinion on that, and she's also skeptical when he tells her, the Tuskens were killed off by the Nitko biker, the Sand gang, the biker gang. So she was kind of like, that doesn't seem like them. So it's kind of fishy what's going on with regarding that. Can we still trust her? What are your thoughts? Do you guys still trust her? Or do you feel like, oh, loyalty, that's fine? Maggie?
I'm not waiting for a heel turn from her.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I'm not rooting for a Fennec Shand heel turn. I hope so. I certainly hope so, because I like her a lot, and I like her relationship with Boba.
Yeah.
Maggie? No.
I don't think that she's gonna do a heel turn, mostly because there's 3 episodes left, and I don't think they've built that up enough. I think they should have had an isolated moment or 2 with just her to really help compel that to seem sensible. And also, I just don't like that plot. Usually in TV shows and movies, I don't like the sudden betrayal once you've built up a partnership like that.
Maggie, do not watch professional wrestling. Do not watch.
I know. I watched it as a kid when The Rock was on, and then I moved on.
Oh God, you were a kid with The Rock. Oh God, I'm so old. Hey, listen, this whole thing, the heel turn. I don't know if it happens. I don't know if I would call it a heel turn, because Boba has made a number of missteps here that have got them in these situations. I'm halfway through Search Party. I just finished the 2nd season. Talk about a protagonist with so many damn flaws that frustrates the hell out of you, and getting everybody sucked into these situations because of their decisions. I feel Boba a little bit is kind of getting Fennec Shand sucked into these situations, because he's making these missteps because of how he wants to do this. And so I think it's just a clashing of philosophy. So I don't see that it would be a heel turn, but I do think there's a moment coming where Boba finds himself in a situation and she finally dresses him down and says, you got to start listening to me. This is what happens when you don't listen to me. You're making these mistakes, blah, blah, blah. So maybe not a heel turn necessarily, but maybe something where she's kind of calling him out and forcing him to take a look at something to adjust his approach, not change, just adjust. And I think that would be nice, because as I've said about this episode, there isn't enough agency here for Fennec. And I know it's a code word, it's a buzzword. I'm not trying to throw people off. I'm just saying I want her to have more input here, more to do with what's happening. That's all. And so I think there's opportunities coming, hopefully in the next 3 episodes.
I've seen some really, really valid critiques on Twitter about how it seems like Fennec's character is completely centered around Boba Fett. She has no outside motivations, no outside connections. Yeah. She has nothing. So I kind of hope, obviously the end of the episode kind of teased that it's going to probably be the Mandalorian that shows up next week as the troops. But it would be nice if Fennec could call in somebody that she knows, somebody from her network of existence, so that she's not solely stuck within the gravity of Boba Fett.
Yeah. Dan, I think we're leading to that Patton Oswalt ending. I mean, we're getting Chrysanthemum, the Mandalorian, Cobb Vanth.
I think we are too. I think our Patton Oswalt ending is coming true. The Millennium Falcon's going to fly in.
Han Solo's going to show up.
All the ghosts of the Jedi Masters are going to be in there with their lightsabers. Yeah, it's going to be everybody. Everybody's
Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to show up. All of
They
the
need
Force
to
goes.
credit him.
Yeah.
Patton Oswalt needs to be credited as a writer for this season.
He should be. He
Oh
should be.
God.
Babu Frick's gonna be running on there with his little legs. It's gonna be crazy.
Him and Ratcatcher.
He's going to be riding
And the
Ratcatcher.
Ratcatcher.
Yeah, there you go.
He's gonna turn back it on and then go. But you know what? It's great because we cut back to the current timeline because we got to see that's all. It's great to see flashbacks, but it's important that it reflects to the current timeline, of course. So it's great to see that we do cut back to the current timeline. It's not just a complete flashback episode. So we cut back to the current timeline where Boba Fett is healed by the Bacta tank and wants to show his face in Tatooine. And Fennec is like, it's a bad idea since war could break out at any moment. I don't think you should. And he goes, no, I need to go. Power is a vacuum. I don't listen to you. So he goes anyway to the sanctuary. Where Santan gets into a fight with Trandoshans, and then Adam Garza, who is gorgeous and wonderful, attempts to stop him, by reminding him of his gladiator days and like being all sweet and and telling him, you're above this, he's just a Trandoshan, and then I'll pay for your drink bar, but drink tab. But instead, he decides, I'm going to kill him. So he kills him and he just leaves. And then Boba Fett decides, hey, I want to hire you for a job. So tell me, guys, what did you think of that entire scene of Boba Fett, not listening to Fennec again and going to the sanctuary and that scene with Santan? At the Santan. I have to do like that.
Well, it makes so much sense because we know that the Trandoshans and the Wookiees have their whole little thing. Considering the first episode with the Trandoshan with the Wookiee pelt, I felt like that was coming. And I'm glad that Black Chrysanthemum is having more action. But my mom and I were talking about that Flip reminds us of Miss Kitty and Gunsmoke. Running the little establishment in town that everybody goes back to and takes no shit. I love that scene though. Black Chrysanthemum has no right being that unattractive.
Whoa, hello.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
All right.
Well, we've got a
It's
first.
funny. I was watching with Mara as I do all these shows, and we were kind of leading up, or it was the beginning of that fight scene, and she turned to me and she said, just once I'd like to see a Wookiee rip somebody's arm out of their socket. and then sure enough, 30 seconds later, we get the payoff to the joke that was set up back in 1977. So, I love we know the lovable Wookiees. We know Chewie. Really, that's all we know, unless you're a big fan of this holiday special. Chewie's the only Wookiee that we've really gotten to know, and I like the fact that and I hope that they, you're bringing the fact that this is a very exploited species. The Wookiees have been used as slaves in the spice mines. I mean, obviously their home planet Kashyyyk back in the Clone Wars is ravaged. They're hunted. They're so the idea that you have we have Wookiees like Chewbacca who are fighting for the good guys, but you also have Wookiees like Chrysanthemum who have been in the gladiator pits. I mean, the dude's had it rough. He's had a rough life, and I like that we're sort of getting to know now another Wookiee character I understand that, I should say in live action. I know that tie-ins and the legacy novels and animation, etc. I'm sure that there have been other Wookiees, but, I've said very clearly, I'm mainly a live action Star Wars person. I'm starting to delve into the animated side, but I like that in the live action movies and shows now, we're seeing more of the fact that there are Wookiees who have had a rougher road. And Chewbacca didn't exactly have an easy one. And so I like this addition here.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. But once again, with as I've said with Fennec Shand, we need more from Garza Flip. I mean, why are we casting Jennifer Beals and we're not getting more with her, more interactions? Why isn't she having something with the Major Domo, with the mayor, with the Trandoshan leaders, with something? I just would like to see more with her as well. She feels like just a character who comes in, has some cool lines or interesting moments, and then boom, she's gone. And I hope there's more coming for her. That being said, I thought this was a very deft way to throw in exposition about Chrysanthemum, having her it makes sense that she would be the one who understands how to deal with this kind of thing, because she's probably dealt with this thing for decades in that sanctuary. So she knows hey, let's play on the ego, the male ego. Let's talk about all the greatness that you were and blah, blah, blah. And then say, hey, but we've moved on. Your aggressiveness was great from that time. Now let's be more intelligent. Let's be more adult, more mature, blah, blah, blah. And for a second, you think it's going to work. And then to Dan and Mara's joy, an arm is ripped off and that transition is gone. But he pays his money to the Twi'lek that's there and then walks out. And so the whole thing leads to that great moment between him and Boba, which I think is awesome. And so clearly he's going to come with them, with Fennec. And Dan makes an excellent point. We need more Wookiees in the Star Wars universe, and we got to have different points of views, different approaches. And we've seen in human side how someone is motivated by the destruction of their life or the destruction of their people to go and become an assassin or become a Jedi or a Sith Lord or whatever. So why wouldn't it make sense for a Wookiee to see this and be like, F this, I'm going to go and have my own life and create my own life. And I'm going to get revenge where I can, but I'm also going to make my money doing what I want to do. And my anger or my bloodlust will get satiated in that manner. So I like it.
And Dan, if you like Wookiees, we have a Jedi Wookiee in the High Republic right now. So I'm saying Buryaga is really awesome.
Oh man, I have more to catch up on.
So much Star Wars.
Well, I also felt like he also felt aimless afterwards because that's why he got into a fight, and I felt like he was betrayed by his by the twins and was freed by Boba Fett. So I think he was like, I don't have a job, I don't know what's going on with my life. Like I'm pissed off. I'm gonna beat up some Trandoshans. And yes, she tries to calm him down, but yet he's just like, you don't control me. No one controls me. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So the fact that Boba Fett was like, I got a job for you. And that kind of gives him like something to do, like a job again. Because I think bounty hunters are so used to working and getting a job after job after job. So I feel like he's like, oh, there's a point for me again to do this. But speaking of the job, his job was to monitor the meeting of, like, it's kind of like the Godfather, a scene from the Godfather, where all the Dons, the heads of each family of each section, sat together in a round table, in a little long table, with Boba Fett at the center, and he tells them about the Pike Syndicate and the spice trade. And they don't really care because they're like, it doesn't affect me. We actually benefit from the trade. But Boba Fett tells them, you know what? I'm not asking you to be on my side. I'm just asking you guys to stay neutral. If they ask you, like, hey, fight for me, I need you to just stay neutral. And he shows his power also because they were like, who says that you should be the Daimon? And the baby Rancor kind of scares them all. So they all agree, okay, we'll be neutral. So what are your thoughts on this, the Godfather kind of sequence that they had? And can we trust these guys? Maggie?
I want to trust them. I want to, but I don't. I think that every single one of those Dons would sell Boba out in a heartbeat. Particularly don't trust the Trandoshans, which is hilarious because I usually try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I don't. I think that I don't think they're all going to rally their own forces and fight Boba Fett, but I think that they're going to provide information about how decentralized his power structure is that could cause some bad things to go down once they actually face off against the Pikes. But I also think that those three groups of people don't want to get involved with the Pikes too much because we know, even though they look like giant catfish, that they're very scary and intimidating. But the one, I think it was it a Trandoshan who said it, that they need the money from the spice trade. So if
I think it was, yeah.
They get an offer to get a cut into the Pikes' dealings with the spice, I'm sure they'd sell Boba out in a heartbeat.
And
yeah, that scene actually went the opposite of where I thought it was going to go, because when they showed that establishing scene, I was like, oh, they're all sitting on the grate. And I thought that, you've established this thing with Stephen Root's character, and they even showed it in the previously on, nobody respects you. I thought they were going to be sitting at the table and Boba was just going to hit the switch, or Fennec was, and they were just going to drop into the Rancor pit with the new Rancor and goodbye, three families. It's sort of I take care of all family business. It is a very Godfather move in a different way. That's where I thought it was headed. But I think that there's the idea that And I made my own contributions to it in the past, although we tried not to get too much into this when I was at Screen Junkies. But the idea that people think that flawed characters are plot holes, that the idea that because a character makes a mistake, that the show makes a mistake. I hate that. I hate that thinking, because it's like all characters must only act in a logical manner always, or there's a problem with the show. It's like, no, it's called a flawed character. I think that Boba is flaw. I think that Fennec was right in a sense that, like, not necessarily specifically being with the Tuskens, but his experiences have left him a little gun shy. And I think we're going to see that. I think maybe he should have flexed a little more, and instead of saying like, okay, I'll fight him, just don't work against me. I think he should have flexed a little bit more. And I think we're probably going to see these mistakes sort of come back to haunt him. And this is the progression of a character. So, I haven't seen a whole lot of reaction for the show, but I imagine some people are saying like, oh, the show sucks because Boba Fett is this, that. It's like, well, hang on. Like, this is also about this character and this idea that he's coming out of a very traumatic experience. So I think this is probably a case where being the deal maker perhaps was not the smart move. But then again, I think that may also be where the show is building to anyway. So I'm curious to see what the consequences of this were, because I thought they were all going into the Sarlacc pit, or sorry, into the Rancor pit, or the Sarlacc pit, either one.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I said earlier, I think that's what we're leading to. These missteps by Boba eventually is going to put him in a situation where Fennec's kind of finally have to kind of really go at him and call him out. And I agree with Dan. I think so. I think, there's a nuance to it that because the shows make the decision about what the characters are going to do. So you can find plot holes in shows, but you're right. Using the characters' issues as the plot hole excuse is not the way you go about it. And I do think that people have to understand Boba is trying to do this for the first time. He's naturally going to make mistakes. He's naturally going to err on the side of caution. I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that he's going to swing. He's swinging this way after he had swung this way. So eventually he's got to level out. And the only way you level out is through experiences, trying out these things, trying out other things. So I think eventually we're going to get that bloodthirsty Boba in certain moments because situations are going to call for it. Eventually. And so I think that's what's coming. But I think this scene could have worked so much better if we knew who the hell called this meeting. Who went to all these heads of the five families, set this up? Was this Fennec Shand's idea, Boba's idea? Whose idea was this to put it all together? Fennec delivering the monologue is great. I really loved that. And I like the twist and the turn in this. But I agree with Dan. It felt a little... how can I say this? It felt a little flaccid what he did, just standing up going, okay, well then don't just go against me. Could you guys just be neutral here? Is that okay with you guys? And they all agree, but we don't know whether these guys have a real adherence to loyalty. As Maggie mentioned earlier, this show is really about loyalty, the whole show. So this episode rather. And so how much loyalty do they actually have? Do you believe that they're abiding by everything? And there is no shot afterwards when they're walking away in the night where one of them goes, oh, we'll see how long that lasts, or says anything like that. So we have to kind of accept that this might hold, but pressures change people's opinions and people's agreements all the time. And we'll see when the chips get down, how many of them actually adhere to what he says and how many of them go with the pike. And certainly Fennec brought that up when we go back to the balcony there where she says, do you really trust them? And his logic makes sense. They have no other option, and then the Pikes are going to come and take care of their territory next after they take this area. So there is a logic to what he's doing to a degree.
John, you make a really good point about the missing the little connector scenes. Like, it would have been great if when Boba's like, I'm going to go do this thing, if Fennec's like, okay, well, where you do that, I'm going to go talk to the families, and we're going to have this meeting with them before things get going, like the little things. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine that's a writing partner of mine, and we think very similarly. So we tend to miss things because we just fill in the blanks for each other because we have the same pattern. And I wonder if John has that issue where he just assumes because he knows what's going on that the audience is going to know what's going on. And I think we just need that little bit more of those little connectors to assure us that what we think is happening is actually what was happening, so that down the line, when it's like, actually, just kidding, it was the Aqualish that called the meeting, that we know that buildup.
Yeah, it's not about spoon feeding. It's about, and I hate when people fucking say that. I go insane at that. It's about connecting the tissue, and it can be quick. It can be quick, you know.
One line of dialogue. That's all
Yes.
you need.
Mhm.
You can teaspoon feed me. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes.
But I do agree with Dan that I was expecting like with the Rancor.
Mhm.
You know, I thought, oh, he's gonna like sacrifice one of them to kind of prove a point and show that, you know, I'm the Dawn. I'm the head of the Diamond. But I also felt I remembered oh, hey, he said he wants to rule by respect, not fear. Because I was thinking, I'm like, kill so you could prove a point. But then I was like, oh, wait, he said he wants to rule by respect. So he's not going to kill, even though, you know, it's the way of the land to do that. So I guess it's trying to show us that, like, even though he's like, oh, I have a Rancor, haha, like, just so you know, like, I could be threatening. He kind of was like, oh, no, I can't kill anyone because I want you to respect me. So I think it might be his downfall. It might be his, it might be great. It might be his downfall. So we'll see. But
Yeah, I think we're building toward a forget it, Boba. It's Tatooine moment. I think it's it's not the place for idealism.
My Rancor, my Sarlacc, my Rancor, my Sarlacc. That's awesome.
Well, the episode ends with Boba Fett and Fennec preparing for war. They were talking about preparing for war against the Pikes. She tells him that credits can buy muscle because he has a lot of credits, and you know, if you know where to find them. And then a familiar sound plays in the background as they're talking. So it's a theme to The Mandalorian. What are your thoughts when you first heard that? And will we be seeing The Mandalorian the next episode or this season?
I thought that they were gonna like pan and he was gonna be like walking in already or something. I was so excited. I sat up straight in my bed and I was like, yes, next week. I hope. I mean, it would be interesting. I also just want to know what's up with him. Like, he has no ship. We don't really know where he is. Like, is he crying somewhere in Sorgan? Like, I lost the child. Like, he needs purpose too. Like, is he going to show up with Bo-Katan? I mean, is she chill with him since he's got the Darksaber? I mean, if they have a whole bunch of Mandalorians show up, that would be pretty intimidating against the Pikes. So that would be kind of cool. Yeah. Is Ahsoka going to show up? Like, we know Dave is writing the final episode, I guess, of the season. So are we building to something even bigger? Is, you know, more of these characters going to pop up? Is the cast of Rebels going to show up?
Maggie is fanficking like crazy.
Anything could happen.
Anything.
We make the joke, but I kind of I listen. I was on the very unpopular side of the coin with the finale of Mandalorian, where I wasn't the biggest fan of the Luke Skywalker thing. I know. I just felt like it derailed the whole thing, and so in a way, I'm kind of hoping like if you're gonna bring Mando in, that's great, but like I don't want us to start bringing in the Darksaber and Bo-Katan and because that's the Mandalorian. That's not this show. And I feel like if you start focusing on all the other stuff from the other shows, then you're going to lose the ball and lose the track on this show and what's going on here. And so I think that again, this is a suggestion from Mara. She's a very good person to bounce off of. She was thinking like, you know, maybe they're hinting at Jen showing up, but also maybe they're hinting at this sort of rogue series or this rogue group of Mandalorians now that we know are out there, and maybe that's who they're insinuating. Like you're going to hire, you know, just these warriors to come in and help you. So it's not just one Mandalorian; you've got a few Mandalorians. But yeah, I mean, I know that there's always the instinct to be like, I want to see this person, I want to see that person, and if they're able to do it, that's great. But at the same time, I really think it's important to not lose sight of this show and the heart of this show and Boba's story and Fennec and all these other characters because, you know, I felt like a lot of Mandalorians sort of got overwhelmed by that. And again, I was very unpopular for this opinion, but in the finale for that show.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I like you. You stand on your own 2 feet, for God's sake. This is, and I think you make an excellent point, Dan. This idea that it has to be singularly, every show is singularly its own universe. Yes, can it have other people jump in? And sure, why not? And fun music, like whenever the Black Panther shows up or any Wakanda thing, and you hear those drum beats in any of the, you're like, oh, you get excited, and you don't know what you're going to get, and it's fun. So I think we're going to get Din Djarin, but I don't think we're going to get much more than Din Djarin on the Mandalorian side. I was thinking initially, because in that first season, how all those Mandalorians saved Din Djarin when he's taking Grogu, we might get some of that. but I don't sense that's necessarily coming. And Mara might be right. There might be like this fringe solo rebel rogue Mandalorians could come in. Could be very interesting to see that. But Fennec is an assassin. Fennec said, I know you can buy muscle. So don't be surprised if we see some other assassins that we've seen from Star Wars lore come in and be a part of this. Because remember, he can hire these assassins. That doesn't mean they have to buy into his idea of running Mos Espa. So that's a possibility, I think, overall here. And I'm excited to see Din Djarin back. And I know people said that was Robert Rodriguez. I heard Pedro Pascal. So I'm from the trailer, I was anticipating him coming. And so the fact that they played that music, I was like, yep, he's coming. Thank God. And at some point, maybe next episode, he's got to hunt down that armor. So the Jawa are in some trouble here to get that armor. And so is Cobb Vanth. So we may not be done with the flashback. So Cobb Vanth may also be a part of this, who's also connected because he's in the Mandalorian. So that music cue could be Mandalorian and Cobb Vanth, or either or. And so I like that idea overall.
No, definitely. I've always, like Dan, I don't want all these characters to come in because I want it, like Boba Fett to be established. But it makes sense to have the Mandalorian show up just quickly, like Boba Fett quickly showed up, like, oh, it's Boba Fett in the Mandalorian, and then he leaves, So it's like, oh, the Mandalorians and like Din's and the Boba Fett. Okay, bye. Like, I'm okay with that kind of situation because it allows him to like gives us like, oh, hey, it's Din. But then also, like, when he leaves, it's like, okay, back to Boba Fett's story, back to his, like, how we could expand this universe. And I actually expect them to bring some other names that we recognize. They're not going to be part of the show. They're just going to be like Bo-Katan, like, she came, like, in The Mandalorian, like, hey, and she's probably, like, going somewhere else. And we have, like, little moments. And I feel like we're going to get that for the rest of the season, like little moments of recognizable people, even from the comic books, from the books, and we will have moments like that because it's Dave Filoni, so I feel like we're gonna get that definitely. Yes. But yes, so that was the end of the episode. So I need to know what your overall thoughts were and predictions for the next 3 episodes of the rest of the season. We'll go with John since we went.
I like this episode. Definitely enjoyed it more, as I said, than the last one. Talking about it with you all made me appreciate even more as we've talked over the last 15 minutes, getting some more nuance and points of views on it. So yeah, definitely made it more enjoyable. I like that we kind of gone back a little bit more to the center approach to what Boba Fett is. I think what we're getting, as we said, is him recruiting essentially a wild bunch or an Ocean's 11 to go with him against the Pike Syndicate. But remember, the Pike Syndicate is backed by some pretty powerful people, so that may be coming as well. As they arm the Pike Syndicate, who has probably spies all over the place, are also going to call in extra reinforcements that aren't necessarily more Pikes like we saw going off the train. There might be more with Crimson Dawn and Kira possibly, or other people showing up in this situation. So I think we're headed to a massive, awesome finale, a complete and utter great, maybe 20 to 25 minute battle that happens over the finale. That's what we're eventually leading to, and some possible cracks in this leadership of Boba that again over the 5 families or whatever he's doing there. We're going to see some cracks kind of emerge as well, and what that leads to in terms of political intrigue. I'm curious to see, but yeah, excited to see what we're going to get. I can't believe we're almost over. It's almost over, for God's sakes.
I think I'm more excited than I was last week to see what's coming, which is I'm happy to feel that way. I think I ranked this episode as like an A-. There was very few like flaws in it, aside from some just wanting more dialogue and more of that connective tissue. I'm really excited because I feel like, fingers crossed, that the next episode is going to be Bryce Dallas Howard. I loved her work on The Mandalorian, so I'm really excited to see how she tackles this world and these characters. She's so good at creating those character moments. So I'm really excited for that. And yeah, I mean, I agree with Dan on the topic of having too many cameos. I complain about cameos all the time, but there is something in me that wants that Mandalorian connection and to build on that, because I feel like there's room in this series to start kind of building and laying the foundation for what's going to be happening in The Mandalorian, since I think we're a little ways out from that and all these shows are vaguely interconnected. So if we get some more Mandalorians, some new characters to glom onto, I'll be really excited. But I still want Fennec to bring in some, backup that she might know from her life, so that she has some more agency outside of being solely connected to Boba Fett. So that's really my wish, dream, expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I thought the episode was pretty good. I'm sort of glad that we're moving forward from here, because that's just sort of where I'm most interested in what's happening. Like we figured out how he did what he did in the past. That's great. I think that as far as the future goes, using kind of Game of Thrones as an example, one thing that I think that show did very well, and one of the reasons why people were so wrapped up in it, is because the characters learned very hard lessons in that show, and it was characters that you liked, and they made mistakes, and a lot of times those had very very dire consequences. I don't think Boba's going to get red weddinged in the throne room or anything, but I do think we're heading toward probably or possibly some sort of a big loss. I hope it's not Fennec. I think that would be kind of cliche.
Don't even put that in the world.
No,
I know. I think that he's heading toward either losing his role as Daimo, or losing some chunk of, we're heading towards something that I think, as John says, is going to make the pendulum kind of swing back toward the middle, where he was this sort of heartless, money rules everything assassin, soulless assassin, and then he sort of swung the other way through the kindness shown to him from the Tuskens, and the fact that you put in the work, you can win over anybody. I think that he's going to have to learn a tough way that the galaxy, it's sort of the Jedi way. It doesn't work in absolutes, and I think that this discovery of a gray area is what we're going to be finding as we go toward the end. And I like that. I like that you have a lead character who learns things as they go, because otherwise it's just kind of boring.
Right. Okay, can I throw one more thing in here? Right now in our discourse that's going on in our world, this idea of the rugged individualism versus the collective is really starting to become a conversation. And I was really surprised to see it pop up in this episode, right? Where Boba says to her, I thought I could do this, but I realized I need a tribe. I need a family. I need to be able to do anything. I need to be able to do it with a tribe or a family. And I think that was such an interesting thing to just kind of slide in there in a conversation over some fire late at night. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fantastic to understand how we can put that conversation or that argument or that discourse on Star Wars, because we've admired some of these rugged individualists, but they've always had a team. So can you make that balance? So I find that I'm going to be curious to see how they do that over the next 3 episodes, because you don't introduce a concept like that and not somehow come back and touch on it as we go along here. So
and then pairing that with the concept of leaders that don't care about what happens to their people. They only care about the bottom line. They don't care if you get killed off. They don't care if you get hurt. And that's another really relevant, topical kind of statement they introduced, paired with that rugged individualism. So it's really interesting, these concepts that they're playing with from the philosophical side point.
Yeah, I also feel like it's also trying to tell us how different he is from Din, because Din is like,
right,
I work alone. I'm alone, like, lone Mandalorian. I'm like alone, and then I have a baby, but like lone, and but he goes, I'll do this alone. I'll take my child myself. And and I think it's trying to show the concept of like Mandalorians, even though they work alone, Boba Fett is trying to be different and trying to is reborn into like, I understand the meaning of family, especially since they show his, Django keep flying away and him saying goodbye to his father. And so I think it's kind of like he's realizing now, after being with the tribe, it's better to be with the people than to be alone, because seeing and I really love that concept, and I hope that it plays out in the end really well. If not, we'll play out with Max Rebo and the jizz music and and go with that. But other than that, but thank you guys for being here and for chatting with me about Chapter 4. It's great to know your opinions and your thoughts and predictions for the next episode. We have Chapter 5 next week. But yeah, I want to just thank you guys for coming, and also tell me where they can find you. Anyone?
Okay, good, Dan.
You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/Dan Murrell Movies, and on Twitter @MurrellDan, and other places where movie things are happening.
You can find me on Twitter @Maggie of the Town. I have a link tree in my bio with all of my various pursuits to make it easier for you to find everything.
You can find me @The Rocha Says on Twitter and Instagram, TikTok as well. Damn it. The Outlaw Nation, the Outlaw Nation on Twitch, and then my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says, and then my podcasts, The Top 10, The Cinephiles, and The Geek Buddies out there for y'all to enjoy.
They got you, John. They
Yeah, they did. Look, if Henry Winkler can be on there with 1.5 million followers, I don't think anybody's too old to be on TikTok.
Are you going to start doing TikTok dances for us?
I know.
I don't know. Maybe. These old bones.
And I'm Laura. You can find me on Twitter at Laura Sirikul. I write for a whole bunch of different sites, so you can find I always retweet where I'm writing at, like Nerdist IGN and a few other places. So yeah, but thank you guys for all being here, and thank you for your watching us. And we'll see you guys next week with Chapter 5. Bye.